before coming to Christ, I was looking into Islam.
For real?
Yes. And
Okay.
I didn't know anything about it other than just how appealing it was.
Yo, I had no idea, man. That's crazy.
I know. Not many people. I never share these. And then when all these things started happening in London and, New York now, next week they have the election. By the time this episode comes, already probably they have...
Yeah, we'll know for sure.
Yeah, we'll know for sure. And it's like one of those things that the more you listen to it, I'm like, God saved me from something pretty big,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, wow, that's.
But yes,
I mean, Islam does have a way with people. It's just very attractive. It's always been attractive.
Why?
Because since its inception. Gosh, what a hard way to say that. Well, since its inception, it was easy to communicate because there's only 5 things you got to do. 5 main things you have to do. There's 5 pillars, when it was being spread throughout all of Arabia, the people that were being introduced to it in Medina, not in Mecca. Mecca wasn't very well received. They found it very easy to apply. It's like, oh, I just have to do those things. Like, oh, it kind of makes it a little bit more easier.
Easier than what, though?
Well, easier than whatever the other kinds of rituals they had. I mean, in Arabia, with all the different kinds of worshiping of the different gods that they had. See, and Islam comes into play in a very interesting time in history. It's like, I think it's like 612.
It's like 600 years after Christ, right?
Oh yeah, for sure, yeah. So, Muhammad is he's born, and his name is Abdullah, and so Allah is part of his dad's name, and that lets you know that Allah it's not, Muhammad did not introduce the name of Allah to the people, because Allah was like the main God of many gods that people would know and worship in Mecca. See, Mecca was this melting pot of many different world religions, and in the 6th century. People will come. Christians will come. Coptic Christians will come. Jews were living there in Arabia. It was just a hot mess. There was this rock in the middle of Mecca. It's known as the Kaaba, and in that rock, people will come in, and they had all these kinds of idols and stuff, and they would worship their gods, and they knew Allah, but Allah to them was just so distant that nobody would pray to Allah unless, it was like something very major. If you wanted money and wealth and to be healed, you would pray to the typical gods that you would pray to. But the problem is that it's very complicated to try to keep the rights with all these different gods. And so Muhammad, he presented these five pillars to live a life in submission of Allah. So the word Muslim just means submitted.
Okay.
And so Islam means submission. And so submission to Allah. And it's crazy. I didn't know all of this until after I had a conversation with an imam. I was like, what? Because the things that when I was going to seminary, I took this class on missiology.
Okay.
And Dr. Paul Aiken, he said, hey, you need to go and have a conversation with someone of a different religion. And so I looked up on my phone, looked up a place where I could speak to a Muslim, and I was like, I'm not going to talk to an average person. I want to speak to someone who would definitely be able to articulate the faith and just actually speak knowledgeably about it. So I met with this guy. It was an imam in Fort Lauderdale.
An imam is like a pastor?
Yeah, it's sort of like, that's a good way to put it. So he was an imam, Imam Ahmed, and very, very kind man. Super, super kind. He took his time to talk. I went to the worship center that they had. Because it wasn't a mosque, it was just a worship center. And we had a 2-hour conversation. And I realized I didn't really know anything about Islam before meeting with him.
Yes.
I did have friends that were Muslims, but it was after I had a conversation with him that I realized, oh my goodness, this makes a lot of sense. Like now I finally get it. Like it's not that I was wrong about thinking about my Muslim friends or It's not. You know the things we see in the media many times where you see the extremists and all this. Like it just clicked. Something made sense. He said something to me that was super chilling. Maybe I'll get a chance to say it. Yeah. But man, but then after that, obviously, I at the school where I teach world religions and apologetics. And so I've had to obviously study more than just a 2-hour conversation with an imam.
I'm so jealous of those kids, actually. Yes, bro, because...
They're not jealous of you, I'll tell you that.
No, they're not, 100%. But the thing is, so I was told at one point, I know why I was told what I was told. I was told that I should not read anything other than the Bible. But I was told these when I was like just starting on my Christian walk, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it was very wise advice because they don't want me to get confused and you start, getting all this information in front of you. And if you are not like stable on the solid foundation of Jesus Christ, like all these things can confuse you, Mm-hmm. So I know that the advice was coming from that place. But then...
Well, how long ago was this?
No, this was like literally I was just starting to go to church.
Oh, okay.
Because at the time... When I started going to church, I was listening to a lot of Andrew Tate. I was listening.
Oh yeah, man, they had a lot of influence and stuff. And they went Islam for a while, right?
Yeah, well, they are. He became a Muslim, and Islam, bro. I have 2 of my really good friends that hopefully they will remain my friends after this episode because I'm not talking bad about Islam, and I just want to leave that clear. We're just exploring this religion,
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a very attractive religion. I mean, it's the second largest world religion.
It will become, I think that it will...
It's on a trajectory to be the primary... you know what? Hold on. Before anything, I will go as far as saying, is Christianity even the number 1 religion of the world?
That was what I was getting, I love that you are teaching kids apologetics and that you are teaching world religions because I think that one of the things that we Christians need to learn from Islam is to actually defend our faith.
Oh, absolutely. And
that's one of the things that makes Islam attractive, especially for men, I think. Because to me, what it was making it attractive, it was this unapologetic way of living life,
it's interesting that you would say towards men. And I think that you're right. It is actually undoubtedly more attractive to men than it is to women because it is incredibly favorable to men. I mean, it talks about the heavenly rewards to men. There's no mention about what women are going to receive, but we know that the men are going to get all these virgins and stuff, and that's the intensive.
What is the obsession with the virgins, though?
Dude, I don't know, bro. I mean, it's I could tell you. I mean, but it's obvious to me that the goal in Christianity, the goal what we see, the goal of humanity is to glorify God and to enjoy Him forever. But that doesn't seem to be the goal in Islam. The goal in Islam seems to be, let me see what I can do to appease Allah's wrath against me. And hopefully, if I fulfill my duties and, so long as I confess that He is the only God and that Muhammad is His prophet, then I have a good standing that I will receive an eternal reward with my virgins. And so then really it's not about glorifying Allah or enjoying Him forever.
It's about me.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's definitely very self-centered in that sense. But I want to be cautious because I don't want to hear my friends who are Muslim and say, "What? I'm not self-centered. I just want to revere Allah because Allah is just so important." And so in Islam, Allah is just so other. He's just so transcendent that He is not able to be personal, like like us. And we have a God of the Bible. He is personal, but not Allah. Allah, you shouldn't even ascribe the word love to Allah, even though the Quran mentions the idea of Allah loving His people. It's more of an approval and less of the word love, because love is understood in Islam as a weakness, and so it's actually it's a human emotion. And so when you ascribe human entities or human emotions to Allah, that is sin. It's a huge sin. And so
so why would Allah choose Muhammad then if he's not.
Why would Allah choose Muhammad?
Yeah, like if he's not a personable God, you know, like why he would have the need to.
Well, you would have to. I mean, you would have to know the origins of how Islam started, and first you gotta. So Muhammad was 6 years old. His mom died when he was 6. His dad died before he was born. He was raised by his uncle in these merchant tribal clans, and his uncle was like the head of the clan that he was at. But he really wasn't. It was really difficult to succeed in where he was living. And one of the things that you do, and even today, is if you can't succeed because you weren't born into wealth, you might want to marry. And so he ended up marrying someone. When he was 25, he married this woman. Her name was Khadija, and she was in her 40s. And he was her fourth husband. So it's like she had other husbands before.
So before Islam, women were allowed to.
No.
They were dead.
It's not, exactly. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it wasn't.
Sorry,
it wasn't a no. Yeah, because now you're gonna get a lot of hate. Yeah. So what happens is he has to prove himself that he's worthy to marry her. And so one of the things that he does is he starts being her errand boy of sorts. And so he becomes her merchant.
Okay.
And he travels a lot. And because he's a merchant, he's going everywhere and he's meeting all kinds of people. Well, after a while, he finally comes back. And one of the things that was very popular in the days of, in the 6th century was if you wanted to be seen as someone noble, as someone wise, you would become this, you would practice monasticism, or you would go into the desert and go into the wilderness and just spend time and meditate. Well, he was a very successful merchant, but he still wasn't very well respected by his own people. So at some point he went over to the wilderness, he went into the caves, and he started having these experiences. And it's very well recorded. No Muslim would deny this, that Muhammad thought that he was being demon possessed. And he was very afraid for his life. He actually wanted to commit suicide from these moments that he was having these. Then he thought, well, I got to go back. I got to figure this out. He went back, and finally he said that it was the angel Gabriel who was speaking to him. And a lot of people started believing what he was saying. He was saying that it was not all these gods. It was Allah.
So he had he had some consciousness about Christianity, though.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he would have been familiarized with Christianity because we're talking about 6th century, yes. 7th century actually now. And so, and unfortunately though, in Arabia, which is really far from the West, a lot of the people that are living there are not the core Orthodox Christians. A lot of these are outcasts who have been kicked out and probably been persecuted by the church.
Okay. Because
they have been deemed heretics. They have been.
So it was like a watered down gospel mixed.
I would say a little bit more than that. It's like they had different.
So it was heresy. They were practicing heresy.
Not everyone, but definitely a lot. I can't. You can't.
Yeah, we can't say for sure but
right. But because there was a lot of faithful Christians also living in there at the time, but. Anyway, so what was the gist of the revelation that he received from Allah? It was that he alone was the one true God and that all these other gods were false. And so that he needed to go back to Mecca and rid of these idols that were in Mecca. And obviously that's not going to be well received by the people who have been worshiping there for centuries. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, I mean, we worship Allah, sure. But like...
Hey, what about all these other gods?
Like, I'm not going to remove credit from this one. So... Obviously, he was pressed very hard, and now it was crazy because, I mean, he was well received by his friends. His wife believed the revelations that he was getting. His family believed the revelations he was getting, and even his closest acquaintances were believing what he was saying, and so that gave credibility to his experience. And a lot of what he was expressing, I mean, you got to keep in mind he was sharing these long narratives, very poetic narratives, but he was illiterate, so he couldn't read or write. And so one of the assumptions was, how is this guy able to come up with all of these stories and narratives if he doesn't read or write? And so all of that gave credibility that this had to, in fact, be a divine revelation. And I mean, that's kind of like the start. But unfortunately, He got pressed very hard by the people that were in Mecca, and eventually, even though he ended up getting I think it's 1,000 followers, they ended up having to leave to Medina for fear that they were going to get killed. It's always been the case that if you try to, go against something that I've believed my whole life, you better believe that your life is probably going to end up being in danger. So everybody fled. He fled. Some of the closest people in his life stayed together, like Abu Bakr, one of these very important people who is going to be important in the secession of Islam when Muhammad ends up dying. But anyway, so he goes to Medina, and then in a matter of 2 years, the guy becomes the governor of Medina.
Oh, wow.
And, he senses that, they're going to probably try to attack him from Mecca. So before they attack you, what do? Attack. And so he goes out and he sends a small number of people to attack Mecca, and they win. It's a huge win. But, these wars keep happening. And so for 3 years, they go back and forth until finally, even there was a point where they almost lost. Muhammad almost lost. I mean, like he came close to dying. Well, finally he comes to Mecca, and Mecca, they ask for peace. They ask for peace, and they say, so okay, fine, we'll give you peace. Now you're gonna allow us to live in Mecca. Now you're gonna allow us to practice what we're saying, and so that obviously meant that it was easier to
control, impose,
but also proselytize, and so people started changing their minds bit by bit in that submission, and eventually they were able to take out all those idols and have that control. But again, there's this contrast between the early revelations of Allah and the later revelations of Allah, and the very early ones are very peaceful. There's a lot of peace involved. There's a lot of here's what you do. You pray 5 times a day. You give zakat. You give and you know how we tithe.
Yes.
Well, they give 2.5% of the money you're supposed to give it, and so it's intended to help the cause. It's intended to proselytize. It's intended to help the needy. That's what you're supposed to do with that. But and there's you got to read the you got to practice fasting. Once a year, Ramadan, and so it's like, and in that time you read the Quran, and that month is important because they believe that was the first, that month is when Allah first revealed himself to Muhammad. So there's a lot of stuff happening, of course, and that's very easy to follow. I can pray 5 times a day. I can give 2.5%. I can worship only one God. Gosh, that makes it a lot easier. I only have to fast 1 month out of the whole year. Sure. That seems pretty easy. I can do that. Anybody can do that.
But Christianity seems easier though. If it was just about being easy, because Christianity, we're not called to, like, Jesus Christ fulfilled the law. So as long as I have faith in Jesus, well, I'm just
absolutely,
making it like simple, but like in that context.
Absolutely. I mean, but you got to remember that it's not the easy part that is attractive to it, but it's also the simplicity of it. I mean, also,
I think that what makes Islam attractive, from what I heard when I was entertaining it, is for men, it's kind of like, it talks about sin, but it doesn't really, especially the sin that it has to do with sexual immorality and that stuff, like, it's one of those things that, I don't know, like, it's appealing to men, like, oh, you can have multiple wives. Yes, I know, as long as you can.
Yeah, well, man, there's a lot of stuff in there because, Muhammad's word, he said that Allah says you can have up to 4 wives. Muhammad had 9. At some point, he ended up having 9.
And he had one like was 6 years old or something.
Aisha,
like
yeah. The story is like this: he saved her, he rescued her, and then he married her at 6. And then when she was 9, they consummated the marriage. So my daughter is 6 years old. If anyone came and did that, I would,
Yeah. No.
But as a Muslim, you can't say something like that because you will be apostatizing, and so you are to be condemned for even suggesting that Muhammad did something wrong in that. And so, there's a lot of videos out there of people talking with Muslims and trying to debate that,
Yes.
and then they always massage it. They always try to but in the 1500s,
That was normal, yes.
Queens is just like, hey man, wrong has always been wrong. Okay,
Correct.
so just
It's one of those things that they want to sort of like justify, like if we're calling Muhammad a prophet, like the prophet of Allah, we need to kind of like justify everything.
So for me, the thing about Islam and people that are Muslim is I don't hate on Muslims, because at the end of the day, a lot of what they believe is just it's an ideology that's impressed on them, and they truly believe it to be true, but they there's a lot of reasons why you should not depart from it, and it's very social. A lot of it is social.
So you just said something, and I want to start like going through misconceptions, because I think that there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to Islam, and one of the misconceptions is, and this happened to me because I have friends that are Muslims, and one of the things when I told them that I was a Christian, it was like, oh, we pretty much believe in the same God.
Right.
So that's misconception number one, is that Christians and Muslims believe in the same God.
Well, but a Muslim will say that the word Allah just means God in Arabic.
Okay.
Right? And so that's why they would say something like that. They say, well, we believe in the God of Abraham. We believe in the God of Moses. We believe in the God of Jesus. Because all of those are persons that are mentioned in the Quran. But they don't believe in the Trinity. And by the way, the Quran mentions that the Trinity is God, Mary, and Jesus.
So the Quran mentions Jesus part of the Trinity.
And Mary,
Wow.
part of the Trinity. Now, when I was having a conversation with this imam, I was the first time I heard that. I asked him, well, what do you mean? It's Mary. No, Mary's not part of the... Mary's not the Trinity. And he said, no, yes, she is. And I said, no, she's not. I'm a pastor. I know this. She's not. Yes, she is. You're wrong because your Bible is corrupted, but the Quran says that it is Mary, God, and Jesus.
Wow. See, that's the attractive part.
No,
The conviction. But the attractive part of Islam is the conviction.
but you gotta remember, bro. I mean,
Because if you go based on logic, right? You're talking about Muhammad didn't know how to read or write.
right.
So you are starting, the foundation of the Quran is based on somebody that didn't know how to read or write.
Yeah, but it's more than that, bro.
It is more
attractive.
than that, but you start like there. So then how you don't question, okay, how is this not corrupted? That's my point.
Well, of course, but then here's the thing: the Quran has so many verifiable things that are incorrect. I mean,
And it contradicts itself a lot too.
well, they would say that it doesn't, but of course,
Because I heard that it says in one part, I cannot quote it because I didn't read it. But I somebody told me that it says in one part that if you have any doubts or something, go and read the book of the Jews or something like that.
oh yeah, it's Surah 568. It says, you people of the book, you ought to go back to the Torah. You Christians, you ought to go back to the Gospels, and
So it's saying that, and then it contradicts saying
well,
that.
that's the Islam dilemma. The Islam dilemma is they believe, and the Quran mentions the Bible as Allah's word. Okay, and so what that means is, all of the Bible was spoken by Allah. The Quran also mentions that Allah's word cannot be corrupted. Okay, so if the Bible is Allah's word, then the Quran is false. Follow me? Because the Bible does not allow for the Quran. But if the Muslim says that the Bible's been corrupted, then guess what? Then the Quran is false, because you're saying that in the Quran it says that the Bible is Allah's word and it cannot be corrupted. So that's the Islam dilemma in a nutshell.
Hey guys, taking a break from the episode. I hope you're enjoying it. But I wanted to share with you our Moments with God prayer journal. They are out right now and they're extremely good to help you with guided prayer, to help you study the word. We have the SOAP method, which is scripture, observation, application, and prayer. We have prayer for others. I've been using these since we launched them, so make sure to grab yours. They are on sale with free shipping. Thank you for your support, and let's get back to the episode. We need to bring somebody. We need to bring an imam.
Maybe I could bring this guy that I spoke with. He's a phenomenal guy. I mean, he's very down to earth. I mean, I would
love to
listen.
talk to him.
I was a little because I was scared when I spoke with him. There was a moment where I spoke with him and I thought, why is this guy not killing me right now?
You can tell the story. You can tell the story.
So I asked him.
Listen to this, Jonathan. This is crazy, bro.
So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, okay, but how do you deal with sin? Because in church, if you are in sin and I notice that you're in sin, then my task is to help you. And hey, brother, I'm noticing this in you. Have you seen this? And let me pray with you. Let's talk about this. Like, I would love to help you. He looked at me and said, no, we don't do that. So, well, how do you help someone who's in sin? No, we don't do that. Look, the way that I stop you from sinning, and he was talking about the hadiths. He was saying, first is by the sword, and if not, then by the words, and if not, then with the mind. And I looked at him and I paused for a moment, and I took this, and he was gulping. I was like, what? Did you get that wrong? Like, let me ask you.
It shouldn't be the other way around.
Shouldn't be the other way around, bro. Like, so I asked him again. He said, can you repeat that? Because I think I got that wrong. No. First by the sword, and if not, then by the word, and if not, then by the mind. And so, well, what do you mean? Like, yeah, so like if a liquor store is open right across the street from here, I should go and burn it. So I asked him, well, I'm a pastor. I preach the gospel. I don't preach Muhammad. You know what I preach. What's stopping you from killing me right now? And he said, well, the caliph fell back in 1921. And so then, I don't have the freedom to do that here. And I took another step back and I'm sitting and I'm like, oh,
what am I doing here?
What am I doing here? Now, then I understood at that moment that every time I've heard something about an extremist in the news that's practicing Islam, the Muslims, those are the extremists. Muslims are usually peaceful.
They're actually practicing.
They're practicing what they believe. I mean, there's over 120 different surahs that talk about how to deal with the unbeliever. I mean, it's like you're supposed to crucify them. You're supposed to maim them. You're supposed to hurt them. You're supposed to subdue them. You're supposed to bring them to submission. And you don't stop until they ask for peace. I mean, just read Surah 9 and it's filled with all these things. And it's not just Surah 9, Surah 8, Surah 3. I mean, passage after passage, we will throw terror into their hearts, is Surah 3, into the hearts of those who disbelieve because they attribute to Allah partners for which he revealed no sanction. Their lodging is fire. And they are supposed to do this. I mean, there's this concept in Islam called jihad, and it's very controversial because some people, the word jihad just means strife or struggle. And so many times in a very peaceful manner, it means, my personal struggle with sin. But it's also the struggle or the holy fight that we have towards those who are standing in opposition with Islam, with Allah. And so, there's also a hadith that talks about how it is a just thing to end your life by the sword, because if I, as a Muslim, end your life with the sword, then I am helping you be in better standing with Allah. So I am doing you a service if I end by killing you. And so
they have another thing that actually
now. Get ready. This is all going to get flagged by YouTube. No one's going to hear this. You're probably going to get this tanked down to the bottom.
Yeah, probably.
But brother, this is not hating on Muslims. No. Because I know what's going to happen is you're going to have those 5 people that are going to start commenting and saying, no, we don't believe that. Just read Surah 5, read Surah 9, read Surah 3, and read Surah 8, and you find it. I mean, if you're saying that you don't believe that is right, okay. I agree with you. I don't think that is right. You're not being a faithful Muslim. You are apostatizing at that moment.
And be careful that those things are not done to you then.
And be careful. Well, yeah. So
because they have this thing called the taqiyya.
Oh yeah, taqiyya, yeah.
That it's an Islamic legal concept that allows a Muslim to conceal or withhold their faith.
Yeah, and
in
that's
situations where telling the truth would bring persecution, harm, or death.
and so obviously that's depending on where you are, that's gonna spread and amalgamate. But it's taken from a couple of verses in the Quran, like it's Surah 3 is one of them. But it's very opposite to Christianity, where like Jesus says, if you deny me, I will deny you.
Mm-hmm.
But in the Quran, it's like, well, hold up. But if your life is in danger, it's
You can't-
okay.
yeah.
You can not you can dodge it. You can protect your family. I mean, like, you are not a disbeliever. You just did it to save your life. That's
It's
different.
kind of like the saying, like the goal justify the means.
The ends justify
the means.
Oh, absolutely. And so it's very morally relativistic in that sense. There's definitely that, because I just can't redeem how I should lie about my faith. If my faith is the true faith, then I'm going to want to impart that on you so that you would also be saved. But if me withholding that information from you means my life is saved, and I mean, you end up in hell, well, at least my life was saved. There's nothing loving about that. It's I mean, that's why Christianity has always thrived under pressure, because martyrdom, this idea of dying for the faith, it always spreads.
Yes.
So and it's not, I'm going to end my life as I hurt other people in the process to try to save them. No, it's as I'm witnessing, I will not recant.
Correct.
Because I know who Christ is.
And we're seeing that in Nigeria right now.
Yeah.
And that's another thing too, that it kind of like drives me crazy that we're living through these times, because especially in the West, we don't talk much about these, and we're so lucky, like we're dealing with Wesley
Huff?
No. We're dealing with church problems from the West.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay.
Which are,
well, we live in a post-Christian society.
well, yes, but then you look at what is going on in the other side of the world. You have Nigeria. Like, I think that till these days, like 50,000 Christians were killed or something like that.
Yeah, and it's been growing. Yeah, I heard a count of almost 100,000. So
yes, and I don't know how many
2009,
churches,
yeah.
like 19,000 churches were burned or something like that as well. And then you have these YouTubers and these influencers that they live in the West, but they will throw flowers to how people in Arabic, Islamic countries live, and then they will portray like, oh my gosh, like people in Dubai live amazing, and people in
and not undoubtedly they do. I mean, you see the videos.
I've been in Qatar. I haven't been to Dubai, but I've been in Qatar.
Bro, can you take me with you, bro? I would love to go.
Next time I go, I'll take you.
Let's do this, but like over there. And let's see if we go to jail.
Yes, let's try not going to jail. But I was in Qatar,
because I know for a fact
we will, and that was where I was going. Is like.
He just said, "We gotta get a new producer."
I'm not going, but it's like we compliment these countries so much, but then there's no freedom. Like the moment we bring up Jesus Christ in one of those countries, we have
you're definitely not free in an Islamic country to evangelize. I mean, the same professor that challenged me to speak with an imam, he was a missionary in an Islamic country, and with his family, with the IMB, the International Mission Board. And he had to flee the country because he received death threats. He was receiving letters saying, hey, we know what you're doing. You need to stop or else. It's punishable by death in some Muslim countries if you convert to Islam. And so you're allowed to be a Christian. You're allowed to gather as a small little, you as your friends.
But the moment you get too big...
you're not allowed to get big, period. You're not allowed to do that. They're not going to allow churches. And you're not allowed to speak about your faith.
But then they come to the West, and and that's why I think that when I heard about these principle, the takisha, I found it so interesting, because kind of like a psyop operation.
Yeah,
it's like let me infiltrate in America, let me infiltrate in Europe, and once I'm in, I'm going to start changing things from within.
Well, that was Muhammad's strategy. When he went over to Medina, the people that were there, they won the hearts of the people. Then Then he became the governor, and then, he imposed a tax on people that in Medina who did not want to convert to Islam,
Oh wow.
and to support the Muslims. But it's yeah, it definitely it becomes very peaceful from the start. But again, it's really difficult again too with Islam to know even like when you're, because I don't know if you've ever read the Quran. Have you ever tried reading the Quran? It doesn't read like the Bible. It's very different. I mean, the word Quran means recitations.
Okay.
And it really is a series of recitations. Like,
so it's not like a story.
No, it doesn't. The Bible starts with Genesis,
Yes.
and you kind of just go through the process, and you see some stories of stuff happening in the middle. No, it's like it talks about. It starts like halfway through. It begins something about Allah, then it talks about the Moses, and then it goes into creation, and then it goes into Abraham, and it's all within verses. Like it's almost like the reader assumes that or rather, the reader is assumed to know these things ahead of time as you're reading it.
Another thing that I heard is that it goes like they
It's not a linear book.
but they don't take the lineage of Jacob, right? They take the lineage
of Isaac. I mean, no,
of Isaac. Sorry, they take the of his brother, right?
Of Ishmael. Yeah, yeah. So they believe that when Abraham went to sacrifice or offer a sacrifice, that it was actually Ishmael, not
Isaac.
not Isaac. Yeah, and so that's actually one of the things when they go to Mecca, because that's one of the 5 pillars. You got to go to Mecca unless you're poor or something, but you have to go visit. And one of the things that they practice is that they have to go and walk by and do this walk around this mountain, like going back and forth a few times, because it was supposed to represent Hagar, and when she found this well and stuff, because they believe that Ishmael is the true heir, and so even originally Muslims weren't even first identified as Muslims; they were identified as Saracens and Ishmaelites. There was a guy named John of Damascus. He lived in Damascus. His grandfather was the chief governor. It was overtaken by the Islamic armies, and it became the epicenter of the Umayyad Empire. Well, he was the chief tax collector of the Caliph. So for the Caliph. So
yes,
but he was a Christian. And this was in the years this was 7th century, late 7th century, early 8th century. So he was very early in the development of Islam, in the conquering of Islam in all the world. And he gave us a snippet of what life was like as a Christian in those days. And man, I mean, it's amazing. I love John of Damascus, phenomenal read. I mean, you got to read some of his stories. But he wrote
crazy.
Yeah, he wrote a book called Against. Forget what the book is called right now. The Fount of Knowledge, I think, is what it's called. And maybe I think it's the Fount of Knowledge. I might be mistaking him with Iron Ears of Lions. But the heresy of the Ishmaelites is a segment that he wrote. It's like 6 pages. You can read it pretty easily. And he talks about how you should do apologetics with a Muslim.
Wow.
And so the concept is simple. You have to understand what they believe better than they believe it. And then you have to make sure that you defend what you believe very well. So you have to know concepts like the Trinity, atonement, stuff. You have to know that. And then what you're going to do is you're going to just show them where they're wrong. And you have to do that in that order, and speak to matters of the heart always. So one of the things that he was very famous for doing is he would bring about, I think it was Surah 4, 171. Maybe you can pull it up.
Let me see.
But Surah 4, 171 is phenomenal because it says, and it's depending on the translation, by the way.
They have translations too?
Yeah, and I got to mention something about that. So whenever you read the Quran in English, you're not actually reading the Quran.
Yeah, because they said that you can only read the Quran in Arabic.
In Arabic. But here's the thing. Before I even start reading this, let me help you understand how a Muslim sees the Quran. They don't see the Quran.
Surah 4?
171.
171.
Okay. Surah 4, 171. I'm depending on where you are, it'll show parentheses or like small little brackets. Certain parts will have that because the commentator is adding context under the assumption that that is what it means, because that's not what the text is saying, but that is what the assumption is of that text based on their theology. So I'm going to show you in just a moment. Before I do that, I'm going to help you understand how a Muslim understands the Quran. Like, you might think that they view the Quran like you and I view the Bible.
Okay.
They don't view it like that. They view the Quran like you and I view Jesus. So Allah,
the Quran is like their savior, like basically.
No. The Quran is the very essence of Allah.
Okay, I understand. So okay, yes.
So you cannot separate the words of Allah from Allah.
Correct.
It is the very same essence. You know?
Yes.
At what point do you separate His word from Him? You can't.
You can't. Yes.
So it is always existing. It has always been. It is uncreated. Okay. So with that in mind, he would say something like this: "O people of the book, do not go to the extremes regarding your faith. Say nothing about Allah except the truth. The Messiah, Jesus, son of Mary, was no more than a messenger of Allah and the fulfillment of His word through Mary, and a spirit created by command from Him." Now you might be reading, I don't know if you read the same translation, but if you were to read it in Arabic, it would actually, like, there's a few phrases in there that will not be there. And I'm going to show you where they are. Okay. So it would say, "The Messiah, Jesus, son of Mary, was no more than a messenger of Allah and His word through Mary and His spirit." So the first time that I read it,
yes,
I read it with the parenthesis. The second time without it, because the Arabic does not have "and the fulfillment of," and it doesn't have "a spirit." So what John of Damascus would do is he would say, if Jesus is the word of Allah, which is basically what the text is saying, at what point do you separate the word, Jesus, from the word and the word from Allah? So according to you, Jesus is God. That's what he would say to them. And at what point do you deny His deity? And so then obviously here, so you believe in Allah and His messengers and do not say Trinity. Stop. Because for them that's shirk. But again, they believe that the Trinity is God, Mary, and Jesus.
Wow.
And that's because that's in these passages. So but think about that. He would use their word against them. And let me take you, bro, if you don't mind.
Yes, of course.
If you understand that Allah, His revelation is uncreated, then you haven't asked me this yet, but you said something about contradictions.
Yes.
They don't believe that the Quran can contradict itself, but they do have something known as abrogations.
Okay.
And an abrogation means to cancel or to annul. And so what that means is that there's earlier revelations that Allah gave to Muhammad that were then superseded by later revelations.
Okay.
So like there's a passage that says that the earth was created in 6 days. And then a passage says it was created in 8 days. There's a passage that says that Jesus was crucified. And there's a passage that says that He wasn't crucified. That He didn't die. So which one is it?
So both are in the Quran?
Yeah. Jesus died, says one. The other one says Jesus was not crucified. He did not die.
So I assume that they take the one that it's further down the book.
They would take the one that's abrogated, right? They would take the later revelation over the earlier revelation. Now, it's really hard to know which one's which because the Quran didn't even come into fruition until after the guy died. Because some guy was commanded, Zaid. He was commissioned by Abu Bakr, his successor. Hey, go out and gather all these recitations before our people lose it. We don't have anything. So he gathered all the stuff and he compiled it and they kept it hidden for 3 imams. So it was hidden for quite a while. And finally, when it was released, there was many versions of the Quran out there that had to be burned. And because we needed to keep one Quran.
So that's not corrupted then.
Right? Well, again, and I know that produces that in us. We want to obviously find the fault and the logical fallacy in there, but It's important for us to understand what they believe and what they know.
Yeah, of course.
So
It's about that. It's not about like trying to.
right, because at the end of the day, here's the thing: I'm not going to talk to a Muslim to try to prove a logical fallacy in their belief. At the end of the day, the thing that wins over a Muslim is matters of the heart. How do you deal with sin? You know, how do you know that you'll be loved by God? They don't even have assurance of salvation. I want you to know that
They don't. Yeah, they don't.
they do those 5 things. They
But
still
they don't know.
They don't know if they'll spend 1,000 years in hell.
One thing that I love about Islam and about other religions too, but this is something that I believe that us Christians need to learn more about, is the unity. Like,
Yeah. Well, but even then, bro, hold up.
Okay.
Because there's Sunni, there's Shia, there's Sufi, and then there's another one out there. I forget the other one. But they're not as united as you think.
That is true. And maybe the examples that I have of unity is when they are in West countries.
Sure, yeah.
So I've seen them. I lived in London. I left England in 2016. London was very different than
I
what
love
it
your
is
British
today.
accent, by the way.
Thank you so much, brother. Mate, thank you, mate. But London was a completely different town from what it is today.
Yeah.
And I even have friends that I talk to them very occasionally. And a lot of them, like, they left London. Like, they still play rugby in London because the team is there, but they don't even live in London of how bad it got, right? And one of the things that I remember is that in these communities, right, the Islamic community, they were super tight. They were all helping each other. They were like trying to grow together, right? The same thing, you come to America, and I've been to Muslim businesses, and I have Muslim friends, and I see how they collaborate with each other. They're always trying to find ways of helping each other. Now, by no means, I don't think that that's the case in their countries, you know, like, again, like I know that I have a friend that he's from Jordan, and I know that Jordan has a lot of poverty and they have a lot of challenges with the king and, you know, all these different things. So I know that unity does not exist everywhere, but I've seen, like, especially when they are like visiting or they are like immigrants on a new territory, they are very much united. Me as a Christian, I've been to other Christian nations, and I had to kind of like fight my way through things, you know?
Well, but of course, but the thing is that right now, whatever we believe Christianity is, it actually isn't. I mean, there's a book called The Great Evangelical Recession, and it was written like 15 years ago. I think it was 15 years ago now. And, he compiled the data and looking at the Pew research. And so the guy's an analyst, a data analyst. And he came up with a crazy number. I never thought about it like this, but he said, if you compile all the Christians, the fully devoted followers of Christ, not the nominal Christians, not the people that say, I'm a Christian, but I don't go to church, I don't believe in this. About 20 million in the world. You could fit all of them in New York.
Wow.
I mean,
that's pretty sad.
Well, yeah, because most people identify as Christian, but they don't even know what
that's actually pretty sad and pretty scary. That reminds me to the Bible verse where Jesus says, many of you will come to me and say, Lord, Lord, we'll cast demons in your name, this and that. And he will say,
yeah, well, in this case, it's even different because these are people that are just living their lives believing that they're Christians without knowing what they believe. And so, but it is not true that you don't find unity in Christianity because, I mean, Acts chapter 2, verses 37 through 42. I mean, it's like, and they devoted themselves to the apostles' teachings, to the, and to the breaking of the bread, and to the fellowship, and to the prayers, and and they shared all things in common. And there's a reason why church exists, and it exists for the glory of God. Obviously, that's the primary reason. But I mean, the church works as a body, and it serves those in need. I mean, the Bible speaks about what good religion is. In James, it talks about what it means to be the hands and feet of Jesus, to feed the poor, to visit the widows, to visit those in jail. That is good. That is what it means to be devoted to Christ. And so it's not true that I mean, if you went to a country that is claiming to be Christian, then that is a good representation of Christianity. Then that would be a bad representation of Christianity. And what they have is something that's nominal Christianity. So meaning Christian by name. In reality, the West is very far away from Christianity, and it's actually more secular.
Amen. Yeah, sure.
It's very secular. I mean, like Christianity is more of this holdover, almost like where it's like we have this remembrance of the past, but it's not really what we have today. And like Christendom died a long time ago. So
It did.
you
It
know,
did.
we're not.
Unfortunately, it did. Hopefully, we can bring it back. That's the goal.
Actually, no, brother. I'm not about that, to be honest with you. Because
not about that?
because here's the thing: Christendom was the state and the church uniting, and it was horrible.
That's a topic for another, because we were talking about that.
Yeah.
We can do that. I believe. Again, I don't want to say I believe because I don't have it like solidified in my mind. But I think that there has to be union between church and state.
I think that what's going to happen is we got to realize that we live in a fallen world, even though Christ has redeemed us, that we have to be aware that this is the conditions of where we are and we're awaiting his return. And it's better to have it's to be realistic about our eschatology, meaning what the end times, and to have an over-realized eschatology, to assume that we have to do this or else, or to have an under-realized eschatology, saying, we can't do anything about it. Might as well just let things be. And so as Christians, when we look at all the things, especially now with Islam as it's making its rise, I mean, it really, I would say that it is the world's largest religion.
Yeah, it is.
And there's a lot of people that are Muslim that even might have heard this. Maybe someone shared it. Maybe share this with a Muslim. You know, I would encourage you to share it. And they might say, I disagree with this. Muhammad wasn't bad for this. That's not true. That's not this. I would say, hold up. Just go back to the Quran, read it for yourself. And then you deal with that, you know, because I don't think that it is wrong to call evil evil.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, you know, you have to do your due diligence as a believer, as a practicer of your faith, to examine what you believe.
Exactly.
And if you believe that your religion is good, then put it in, like, show me how it works. Show me how it's.
Yeah, don't try to kind of like puzzle it in.
Right. So, I mean, all of the good that we have had in the West has been because of the church. And yet at the same time, we know that fallen men have led, which meant that all of the wrongs as well has been primarily from people practicing Christianity poorly.
Brother, you are an encyclopedia, bro. I love having these conversations with you. Next, we need to try to get. I'm going to try to get, and you know, I know that you will try to get an Iman.
I would love to talk to him. He has been writing me every single day.
That's another thing that they do better than us.
Absolutely, because he believes that I'm open.
They evangelize, no, proselytize, unapologetically.
Yeah,
like even my friend. He gifted me a Quran, even though he knows that I am like a Christian, you know, he gifted to me.
Listen.
And like, okay, and if I would have done the same way, he would have been offended, which is the part that I don't like, because it's kind of like having this double standard, which is like, I'm going to do it,
yeah,
and you cannot do anything about it, but if you do it, I can do something about it.
Well, I would say, brother, I mean, like, to a Muslim friend who might have gifted you that is like, hey, I read it. And you know what? According to the Quran, it says that the Bible is God's word and that you should read it if you want to verify that the Quran is true. Why don't you read my Bible so that you can verify if the Quran is true?
That's a good approach.
So, and you know, I appreciate you having given me this. And so, you know, here's what your Quran says. Surah 5 is one of them. But there's a couple of more that just point to that. Hey, look at it. You can't corrupt this. Here you go. And you'll be good, bro. You know.
But yes, brother, thank you so much.
Bro, it's my honor, man.
I love doing this, and we'll do it again next week, guys.
Let's go.
Thank you. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Make sure to subscribe, like, and comment. Let me know your thoughts. I always read the comments, and they help me come up with new ideas for the next episodes. And if you felt that this episode helped you or may help somebody else, make sure to share it. It will help the algorithm of the videos. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next episode.